Welcome back to the Business Simple podcast. I have Ant Patrickson here with me, one of the directors of Rosefern Homes, someone I've known for years now, a previous owner of a REIT property that were huge in the as-is-whereas space in Christchurch post-earthquakes, originally not from Christchurch. I'm sure has a really cool story that I'm interested in hearing a little bit about, and getting a bit of an update on their perspective of how the development market is at the moment and that sort of thing. So thank you very much, mate, for taking the time.
No problem, mate. Absolute pleasure. I just want to say you're the second Wallace I've done business with over the years. I've done a lot of work with your dad.
Yeah, the best looking one though.
Yeah, 100%. He would tell you that too.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw. Because I do radio advertising through him.
Yeah.
And I went to the MediaWorks Christmas event. And whenever I take photos with him, he stands on his tiptoes so that he looks taller than me. And the photographer shot wide enough that you can see him standing on his tiptoes. So I put the photo on LinkedIn. Yeah. I don't think he was too happy about it, but that's okay.
He's a good man though. When I ring him, or when my business partner Paul rings him, he's got a different picture of the Muppets, the two Muppets. So, just to give you an insight into a bit of the relationship that went on there. Yeah,
he loves you too as well. He speaks very, very highly of you guys. So, I'm really interested in actually hearing this because we've spent a lot of time together actually over the years. Not so much probably in the last two, I think just with how busy everything's been, but I never actually really understood how you wound up in Christchurch, how you wound up in as-is-whereas, which was kind of the period of time that I first met you. Can you talk me through what that journey was like a little bit, all that sort of thing?
It was never intended.
Yeah, never is.
No. So it would have been 11 and a half years ago. I came here with 20 kilos of baggage.
Yeah.
Just pulling my luggage along. I was a backpacker.
Yeah.
I'd been in Australia for 2.5 years. Worked there on prawn trawlers, shark fishing boats. Went back to the UK after a crazy stint in Australia.
Yeah.
Didn't really settle.
Yeah.
I love home, love Newcastle, but this side of the world just appeals to me a lot.
Yeah.
So when I came back to New Zealand, I genuinely thought I was going to do the usual British thing of spend a bit of time in each city and maybe go to Queenstown and just travel around, pick up some work. But Christchurch was so accommodating.
Mm-hmm.
Within 3 to 4 days, I had a job offer to try and sell advertising, which I wasn't very good at.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at.
Interesting.
Especially at the time when Google was just taking off.
Yeah.
I was ringing business owners asking if they would advertise in a business magazine, a print business magazine, sorry.
Yeah.
With my accent.
Yeah.
So immediately it was putting people off. Say, where are you calling from?
Yeah.
And I was putting my very best telephone accent on.
Yeah.
But within those first few days, I'd got a free gym membership with the job I had. Met a guy at the gym, Paul Stead.
Yeah.
You know Paul Stead?
Yeah, of course.
Really good guy, had corporate wellness solutions.
Yeah.
And he collared me on a Saturday and said, right, you're English, you must be able to kick a football.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I used to play back in the day a bit. And he said, right, go and buy some boots. My friend's going to pick you up at 2 o'clock. We're playing at 2:30. I was like, oh, this is all very fast.
Yeah.
And I hadn't kicked a ball for many years.
Yeah.
And then a friend of his, Troy, I'm not sure if you know Troy.
Yeah, I do know Troy.
Very big into property.
Yeah.
This is how it all kind of dovetails a bit.
Yeah.
Picked me up. I told him my stories about Australia. He told me the stories about what he does for work and what he's done in the last few years in property in Christchurch. I thought, this guy's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Played the game, scored a couple of goals.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed kicking the ball again.
Yeah.
And instantly formed a group of friends. You know, when you join a football team and you're from overseas, immediately you have one thing in common with at least 16 people.
Yeah.
You all enjoy playing football.
Yeah.
But these guys that we met, they were all really good guys, all into property, all a little bit older than myself.
Yeah.
So I felt like I just instantly tapped into a bit of a network that I didn't realise would lead to where I am now.
Yeah, wow.
But instantly became really good friends. The team was pretty good as well.
Yeah.
They weren't too bad.
You're all knowing the group of you that was all that, like you're all pretty athletic and it's not
Yeah, there's some athletes in there.
Yeah.
And they were an old rugby team that transferred into football.
Yeah, right, better for the body.
Some of them call it soccer. But yeah, really, really good guys. And over the years, I got more intrigued about what Troy was doing, what Paul was doing in their respective spaces. I just kind of looked up to them and thought that they're doing some pretty cool stuff. My background was journalism, so I'd done a bit of business writing I was freelance for a while.
Yeah.
I thought, it's not really my passion, it's not driving me. And hearing these guys doing property deals and finding projects and renovating them, that really excited me. Excited me. So I remember asking Troy, can I just take you for a coffee and pick your brains, and if you don't mind, you tell me what you do? He said, oh, sure, brother, no problem. Yeah. And that guy's so generous with his time, his knowledge, and even his resources. You know, over the years, the relationship's kind of gone from football to friend to business partner to mentor. Yeah. And today, you know, I speak to him every day.
Yeah, right.
And that got me into the property. Yeah. And then Paul, who's my business partner, who you also know Paul. Yeah. I actually met him in Australia backpacking.
Yeah, right.
And he's a builder. He's a good builder.
Yeah.
Doesn't get on the tools anymore.
Yeah. Got to do your time though, eh?
Exactly. Yeah. But I knew he was back in the UK, and he wasn't 100% settled like myself when I went back to the UK. Mm-hmm. So I rang him up. I said, mate, you're a builder. There's plenty of work for you in Christchurch. Yeah. It was just after the earthquakes, you know. It made sense for him to come out here. Yeah. So 6 months after I came, he came out with his ex-partner at the time. She still lives here and works here. Yeah. He joined our football team. He was a rugby player. Yeah. Like that was his first sport. Yeah. He still tackled in football like he was a rugby player. But he fit in perfectly to the social group. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we realised we had these complementary skill sets. Yeah. But I kind of forced my skill set. I was a writer, so then I learned a little bit about websites, and I learned how to create a platform. And I thought, well, I could probably chip in by doing some writing and some promotional for a property website. Paul can do the building work. He can learn a little bit about how to fix some as-is houses. Yeah. Troy was the knowledge, the experience, and the money behind it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, we formed this small syndicate. This is condensing about 3 years' worth of relationship. Sure. Yeah. But it was just piecing together the puzzle, and we had this small little team that ended up thinking it was going to be a syndicate that might do 2 or 3 houses a year. Yeah. And in our first year, I think we did about 20.
Yeah, right.
So it was a real steep curve. Yeah. So we had to learn real fast.
Yeah, of course. And what, I mean, a lot of the guests that have come on here have spoken about that fast uphill, and like we know it through our business and what it's like. It's you look back on it fondly, but it's not always so easy at the time. There's a lot of fires when you're going uphill quickly. Yeah. And without the experience, I mean, I hadn't really been in the corporate environment. Mm-hmm. I went to university, then I went off doing my travels, and then went from Australia back to the UK, from the UK back to New Zealand. So I hadn't really been in that environment of, this is how growth looks. Yeah, right. I'd always just known how to work. Yeah. Which also transitioned into a strange stage where I just knew how to work really hard. Yeah. And I did. And the first few years were just early mornings, late nights. Yeah. I was seeing 10 houses a day sometimes. Yeah, right. Earthquake damaged, and having to make offers on them and having to work out how to repair them, read the engineer's reports. Luckily, I didn't have a partner at the time, so it was a lot of just head into work. Yeah. Which also set me up for years later, probably some bad habits. Yep. That you have to eventually peel yourself out of. Yeah. Everyone that, actually, to be fair, there's probably 1 or 2 guests that I can think of that have come on that have experienced that thing without developing some of you're chasing these massive highs, right? Because you're, and it's the same with us. You're signing clients. You've got these things going on. You're in 10 places at once. You're doing the work of 4 people. You've got this stuff going on, and then you catch up with other people who are riding the same wave with the same kind of momentum for a couple of beers, and it's really hard to keep the lid on it because everyone's so excited and there's so much passion and people are feeding off each other. And often when you're working, you're quite isolated. Like, I mean, I know you had business partners, but for me, especially, the majority of building Digital Simple was quite, I would probably use the word, and I don't mean this negatively, but like dark. Like it was just me. You're just doing stuff. You're just up at night by yourself on your laptop, writing things, setting up ads, doing stuff like that. You're waking up in the morning, you're doing the same process again. You're doing that for really long periods of time. Yeah. And so when you get that release, you're like, this feels good. Yeah. If you can lean on someone who's also in that mode. Yeah. I mean, even now we have, we see David Mills as a business coach. Yeah. That honestly, the first time I walked out of a session with him, it felt like a therapy session. Yeah, he's my therapist for sure. Yeah, loaded on you.
But it was great because it put certain barriers and said, well,
Yeah.
don't try and spread yourself too thin. Just focus on what you're really good at.
Yeah.
Like each of you, because myself and Paul still work in Rosefern today.
Yeah.
You do what you're good at. Leave it to Paul instead of both of you being spread thin. Then you can grow vertically. Yeah, it was nice to hear from David that you're doing okay. Just don't do too much of it too fast.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Nice. And so then, whereas how long you in that market for once you guys start? You said you did 20 in the first year. What does that next period look like?
It was crazy. So if you can imagine, I always tell the story of going back to Newcastle. I'd been in Australia working on prawn trawlers, which was hard work. It was the longest shift I ever did on a prawn trawler was 52 hours. Yeah, wow. And then I slept for 3 hours, and then I worked for another 40 hours, and then I slept for maybe 4 hours, and did a 24-hour shift after that, and it felt like a breeze. Yeah. If the prawns were there, you were catching them. Yeah. So that lifestyle was just go as hard as you possibly can. Yeah. And then I would go back to Newcastle, and I'd saved a bit of money, and I'd made a bit of money on the boat, and I would tell my mother, my grandparents, how to catch a prawn. Yeah. And then I go away to New Zealand, and then I come back to Newcastle, and I tell my grandparents, right, what you do is you buy the house, then you do the re-leveling work, with the engineer involved, and they go, hang on, last time you come home, you were telling us how to catch a prawn. So it's just completely different skill sets that you have to learn really quick. But it always entertains me. Yeah, right. Seeing their reaction to that. Yeah. But that was an amazing period, that first few years, and as is where is. Yeah. One of the strangest periods was when we ended up on the front cover of Property Investor magazine. Which I was going to bring up. Yeah, small claim to fame. I went and bought out the whole of Whitcoulls. I was pointing to it. I recognise that fella. So that was very strange to send back home and say, look at this, I'm on the front cover of a magazine for good stuff. Yeah. Nice. But we delved pretty deep into how to do these houses, because originally we didn't even know that you could repair an earthquake damaged house, and then we realised as is where is doesn't mean it's a complete write-off. It means someone's taken some insurance money and not done the repairs that they've been paid for, and these could be $5,000 worth of repairs. This could be $150,000. There was a wide range, so you had to really learn what you were looking for and know that you were buying the right house and you had the right repair strategy, and you'd got your figures right too. So it was a steep learning curve. With a lot of the people that have experienced that kind of fast growth, they dropped a few balls along the way. Did you have any of those repair jobs or anything that went horrifically wrong? Did you have anything? Yeah. I mean, it's a numbers game. Yeah. Every house you do, if people tell you every house they've ever done has been an absolute win, I would question it, because especially when you do volume. Yeah. And there was some houses where you'd break even. Yeah. Some houses where you'd lose a bit, but you'd learn a lot. Yeah. So you just become more aware of what you're looking for. Yeah, sure. So in the early days, there was some that didn't quite work, and we probably paid too much for the house itself, and the end value wasn't there. The market was tougher, but it makes you better for when you're looking at the next. Yeah. Which is now, that's compounded into development. Yeah, so of course. It's a skill set you learn at the very start, but it never disappears. Yeah. And that was probably and I don't know what it is about that market in particular, but it was mimicked, I suppose, slightly with townhouse development, but as is where is got really out of hand at one point. Like the people were paying a lot of money for these houses, and a lot of people were going into the market that probably didn't have that experience or knowledge and things like that. Is that a part of why you moved away from it, or what was it that drove you out? Yeah, it became very tough because it became the in thing to do. Yeah. There was people turning up at auction rooms and they would just watch to see who was bidding. And they thought, if such and such is bidding for it, must be a good house. Yeah, right. I'll just pay a little bit more than him and try and make it work, which genuinely just ends up in a bidding war. Yeah. So it became a crowded marketplace, and then there was less and less, and then people then realised there's lots of people fighting for these houses. The prices go up, and it's one thing you can't overpay for as an as is where is, because you still got to fix it. You still got to do the foundation releveling, and all of the renovation works are sometimes more expensive than the structural works. Yeah. Everything cracks means full interior repaint. Go to all the floor coverings, and so you've just got to know your numbers. Yeah, really know your numbers. Yeah, and I mean, through my extremely limited in comparison with yours, but through my limited experience buying and selling existing property,
it's sometimes like catching a hand grenade with the pin out. Like you just, you know, you don't know what you're going to get. It might just go pff, and it'd be no problems. It might blow up. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. And if it's a property transaction, the mistakes have extra zeros because of the, you know, the scale of what can be wrong.
Yeah. We had a year where we did 50 houses. So that's 50 houses, whereas that's 50 purchases, that's 50 vendors that you're working with.
Yeah.
And the majority of our buying was private.
Yeah.
Because we bought a lot of radio advertising through another Mr. Wallace.
Yeah.
So the REIT advert used to go out and say, oh, do you own an earthquake damaged house? We can come and buy it privately. And we would literally sit across the table and say, right, we think it's worth this after reading the reports. And they would go, okay, what if you paid that? So we had negotiations like that. No real estate agent involved.
Yeah.
And we never really had a deal go bad.
Yeah, right.
And I think that comes down to a bit of empathy, like understanding what these people have gone through.
Yeah.
A lot of them had gone through, I mean, a traumatic time with the earthquakes.
Yeah.
But it was also their prized possession. It was their biggest asset.
And they were getting driven down by insurance companies often too, or held out, or things like that. Yeah.
So they didn't want to meet someone who was then going to tell them it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
They would actually look at it and go, okay, if we can make it work for us, we can make it work for you. There's a deal to be done.
Yeah.
And that was our approach. There's other companies out there who didn't take that approach.
Yeah.
And we'd come up against them and we're like, this is not for us. Like, I don't want to get involved in that.
Yeah.
We always just try to we put our faces on the website, we put our names out there, you can contact us at any time.
Yeah.
A lot of these private buying companies, it's just a phone number.
Yeah, faceless.
Email address. It's like we're proud and we've got a bit of integrity about us. That we're not going to try and rip anyone off. If the deal's there to be done, it's there to be done. If it's not, we'll walk away.
I think that carried through. I think that matched your reputation. You know, like I was hearing horror stories everywhere from, and it was on both sides. It was the purchasers' horror stories. It was the sellers' horror story. Like, there was all sorts of stuff going on. Hearing yarns about people offering people 40 grand on the street for their house and things like that. It was all pretty wild there for a bit. Yeah. I suppose, you know, it would have been something that you guys would have benefited from that period of time greatly. It's good to be able to do that and walk away and have your head held high and say that you also did the right thing by people too. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of referrals.
Yeah.
So people would sell their house to us, and then 3 to 6 months later, we'd get a phone call from their friend.
Yeah.
Which was so good.
Nice.
You know how business is. If you can get a referral from someone, it's zero cost to marketing, and it makes you feel good. You're like, okay, I've treated someone well. Yeah. Their friends come back to us. So that's one of the best things we could have asked for with that business. Yeah,
nice. Yeah. That's awesome. And so then, obviously, as we mentioned, it gets pretty competitive. It gets very challenging to make money. How does then development pop up? How does that next period go? Were you guys looking at a few other things? Like, was it pre-planned?
It wasn't really planned, but we could see that there was a shortage coming of the earthquake damage stuff. But a lot of the earthquake damaged houses we were looking at might be a 90 square metre house on an 800 square metre section.
Yeah.
You're thinking it's not going to quite work for us to repair the house because it might cost more than the house is actually worth.
Yeah.
So the value here is in the land. And we were seeing these things before they went to market. Yeah. So we'd often discussed, Paul being a builder, we should eventually get into these new builds.
Yeah.
And like everything, it's a journey, right? So we started off pretty much trying to find a few deals, and then we started buying them with some investor money, and then buying some with our own company money. Yeah. And then eventually, okay, we can make this work as a business where we can buy developable land and then work out how to build them as well. Yeah. So like everything, like property's been a journey for us, and we knew eventually we wanted to get into the development side of it. Yeah. So we put it to our business partner in Auckland. Yeah. And said, look, we're struggling to find the really good deals anymore for the as-is. Let's build some new homes. Yeah. And Scott, who we met on a radio advertising trip, actually.
I was going to touch on you being an exceptional networker and that being how you stumbled across your... Yeah.
It's a good way to put it. Stumbled across. Yeah, because myself and Paul went on the trip because we were buying the radio adverts for a REIT. Yeah. They would take you away, and I would go away with your dad to Port Douglas, Singapore and Dubai. And we went to Buenos Aires one year, and Scott, who's the third person in Rosefern, he'd just split up with his wife, so he took his best friend. Yeah. So me and Paul being very good mates, and then Scott and Blackie, his really good mate, just got on like a house on fire. Yeah. So, I mean, we got let loose into Buenos Aires, and we had a great time. Yeah. But it's amazing the networking that can be done when you're in a foreign country and you're just getting to know each other. Yeah. And he told us his story about what he'd done with his business. really successful guy. We told him what we were doing down in Christchurch, and he kindly referred it to me and Paul as the two gypsies.
Yeah.
Still does. So I said, well, why don't you come down and see what these two gypsies do in Christchurch, and we'll show you exactly like the business model we've been running.
Yeah.
And at the time, me and Paul had branched off from Arit. Arit was doing his thing. Me and Paul were using second-tier lenders, third-tier lenders to buy earthquake-damaged houses and still making them work.
Yeah.
We had a really good system. So Scott, being a smart guy, looked at everything and thought, oh, you're spending a bit on finance there. I could come in and help you and get a part of the company. So a deal was struck.
Yeah, nice.
Started in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Dragged him
in
down
New
from
Zealand.
Auckland back to Christchurch.
Yeah.
So he liked what we were doing, and he's been great because he's always said he backs the journey as well.
Yeah.
Because not every journey goes like that.
And it's such an important part if you're bringing someone into something, especially something that's working when you don't need that person, is that they have that focus. You know, like they're not going to come in and try to suck resources out or do anything like that. They want to contribute more than they take. That's yeah.
And he was great with saying, you guys know your property thing.
Yeah.
You just do that. I'll be on the financing side.
Yeah.
Which we couldn't have wished for a better
Yeah.
investor or
nice.
or the director.
Yeah.
So that's when Rosefern started. So Rosefern actually started to do the as is where is.
Mm-hmm.
The rose and the fern was the English rugby jersey and the Kiwi rugby jersey.
Yeah.
And there was a World Cup on at the time.
Yeah.
England did pretty well. I don't want to just put that out there. But yeah, Scott being a smart guy and just a very laid back fella, said, right, let's go on this journey together.
Yeah.
And it started with a small 3-unit development that was pre-consented.
Yeah.
And then we realised that was going pretty well. And it sold really well when we released it. Even though we had terrible renders, we look back and think, oh, we gave the real estate agent at the time a really hard job to sell this. But the market back then was really good. Yeah. Which was also a bit of a bad thing. You know, it can mask some shortcomings. Yeah. So we'd release a development and it would sell. You think, oh, fantastic, this is good. Mm-hmm. It was only when it turned that you realise, okay, you need to really focus on your product. You've got to really focus on your whole system, really. Yeah. So,
and that is that's a really valuable lesson for any business, though, right? Like, because it's really easy to. I actually released a short episode about this the other day, which was talking about the idea of just like business hacking, like you know, it's your marketing system, your sales system, like those being all the things you're obsessed with, rather than just having a killer product. Yeah. And if you have a really killer product, you don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. Yeah. There was this really good podcast I listened to with Larry Page, the ex-CEO of Google, and he was basically like, if I had one thing that I would do differently, if I could go back in time, it would be Google would have been 95% technicians, and we would have just focused on delivery. That would have been it. And he's like, I wouldn't have worried about these sales teams and these branding campaigns and things like that, because we already had the best product. So imagine if we'd committed like that to it, how big our share would have been. Yeah. Interesting to hear someone that intelligent talk about that, but you often have to be hurt to think that way, right? It's the only way.
Yeah. And I've always thought in development, the reason we're called developers is because each development you do, you learn something. Yeah. You know, it is it's a journey. If you haven't learned something from your last development, you're doing something wrong. Yeah. So, I mean, some of the best developers have been doing it 20, 30 years. Yeah. There's some really good ones that have been doing it for 10 years. But the experience you get by going through quite a few property cycles is just unbelievable. Yeah. And we find ourselves pretty damn lucky that we went to an incredibly hot market and an incredibly cool market in such a short space of time. Yeah. It was painful at the time, but at least you had that journey really quickly. That's a 7-year cycle for some people. Yeah. But we learned that within 16 months. It was searingly hot to very, very cool. Yeah. Which just focuses yourself on what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? Yeah. And you pick your business apart, go, okay, right, where's the leaks in my bucket? Yeah. How can I fix that? Yeah. So we feel actually grateful that we went through it.
Yeah, nice. And so how has your product evolved? So what is, like, if there's, and maybe it's an elevator pitch, maybe it's not, but if someone's going, who is Rosefern Homes? Why? Where do they stand out? What does that look like?
I quite often say we build Kiwi homes with a British accent.
Yeah.
Not my accent, hopefully. Yeah. Paul's nice Southern English accent. Yeah. But I guess with everyone, you take inspiration from your current environment or previous environments. Mm-hmm. We look across the world and see what people are doing well. Yeah. We know that as much as the Kiwi quarter-acre dream still exists to a point, in the future, density is the only way to really enable affordability. Mm-hmm. So we look at the UK, and where I'm from, Newcastle. there's a lot of terraced houses.
Yeah.
But they're quite nice.
Yeah.
There's somewhere that they're kind of jammed in.
Yeah.
But there is actually some really good density. The density's done well over there.
Yeah.
So we've looked at that for some inspiration.
Yeah.
And we want to replicate the good parts from the UK and then obviously put a Kiwi twist on it to make sure that the customer is happy with the product at the end.
Yeah, nice. And like I drove past one of your developments the other day, and I suppose that Kiwi twist that I thought was summed up really nicely there was it was just all decks at the back of all the houses, and you think that is pretty Kiwi, having that to step out onto, and I wouldn't imagine you'd see much of that in the UK.
Not too many days. Yeah. A lot of concrete.
Yeah.
But I think it's townhouse living.
Yeah.
I live in a townhouse.
Yeah.
For the last 3 years, I've lived in the central city, and I love living in the central city.
Yeah.
And the low maintenance aspect of it, I've got artificial grass out the back.
Yeah.
And I've got exposed aggregate out the front.
Yeah.
And it's so low maintenance. I haven't been to Bunnings in so long.
Yeah.
I kind of miss the sausage sizzle a bit.
Yeah.
But, on the weekends are mine.
Yeah.
I've really, really enjoyed and embraced townhouse living.
Yeah.
So when people say, "Oh, it's a townhouse," I say, "I live in one, and I love it." And when you're used to living like that as well, I mean, I grew up. My sister lives in a townhouse now. I've just visited them back in the UK. Stayed in the spare room. Like my family live in these houses. I think it's something that the Kiwis eventually get around to.
Yeah. It is a and I mean I've kind of gone through the process in reverse. Like it's maybe not because you started out there as well. But I'd always, from pretty much when I started Digital Simple, I'd lived in like apartments and townhouses. Like I'm like small, and I'd lived by myself for most of that period of time. And so, and some of the apartments have been pretty big. At one point, the biggest was 212 square meters on Gloucester Street. Yeah, which was too much. It was too much. Didn't use half of it. But I liked, now that I live in a flat house with lawn and stuff like that, my dog loves it. Jen loves it. Yeah. Archie at some point in time will love it when he can roll around in the grass and do all that sort of stuff. But it's actually a bit of hassle, to be honest. Some part, like every, say, third time you mow the lawns, it's real therapeutic and nice. And you're like, this is cool, and the sun's out, and you go, but the other 2 out of 3 times are a pain. Yeah. And I can't do gardens. And so I don't know what I'm doing. So Jen went and bought this like hedge trimmer thing, and she's like, we need to sort these. We've got this. I'm like, cool. I like cut the things in half. I I butchered them. Yeah. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not overly practical.
Not the green finger.
Not the green finger. Not any of that. I'm no good with the hammer. But it's like I said, it is actually, there's parts of it that are nice. Yeah. But it's actually a bit of a hassle to sort all that stuff out. And the townhouse thing, especially if it's done properly, is really easy. Yeah. It's really easy, especially when you can get up and down stairs nice and easily. That's probably the only thing as you get older that can be a little bit limiting. But it's, and being in the central city is awesome. I hate my commute to work. Once again, Jen just gives me shit because she's from Auckland. It used to take her 90 minutes to get to work. Yeah. But I'm like, 20 is too long.
From the UK, I'm like, you'll be fine.
Yeah. But
Christchurch, if you're at the same set of lights and you don't get through and it turns red twice, that's
it's over. Yeah, absurd.
I try to tell people back home that. I'm like, don't make me feel worse.
Yeah.
You live in New Zealand already.
Yeah, nice. And so what is the last few years? You mentioned there's like that tough property market, there's the red hot property market. What's it been like in Rosefern over the last couple of years? What's been going well? What's been challenging? Where are you guys kind of set up for next?
It's been a steep learning curve. Yeah. That's the best way to put it. Is you don't know what you don't know. And there's not too many resources out there saying this is how you develop well. Yeah. Because the best developers don't really want to teach their competition. Yeah. It's a very secretive industry. There's a few resources out there, but a lot of it you have to learn by doing, which is also difficult because you make mistakes early. Yeah. And we had a couple of subcontractors didn't quite work out for us. Yeah. A few that took us on a bit of a journey. Yeah. That cost us some money but taught us some lessons. Yeah. We look back at that period now, and with property, everything has such a long lag. So we engaged an architect who wasn't doing the plans, was taking the money, lots of excuses. A few developments started the string out a lot longer than they should have. Yeah. We missed the market. The land's gone down in value, so you compound all of that. It landed us in a bit of a tough patch. Yeah. But the one thing we did is just drill down and said, right, we're in a tough patch. How do we get out of this? Yeah. We just looked at our whole business model, and now it's completely changed to what we used to do. Yeah. We used to give it to one builder and say, this is the plan. This is what we've sold. Deliver a beautiful product.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, you lose a lot of control and a lot of margin.
Yeah.
And it's the whole leaky bucket.
Yeah.
Back then, we were trying to fix the leaky bucket by just pouring more water into it.
Yeah.
Doing more developments, but realistically, we had to pivot.
Yeah.
So now we do everything in-house.
Yeah.
So we engage contractors, we engage everyone direct.
Yeah, right.
And that leak in the bucket has really, really helped. We don't have to just keep pouring more water in.
Yeah.
It's just, we've fixed that.
Yeah.
And we've really worked on our brand, our delivery and customer journey as well.
Yeah.
Which is so important and was probably overlooked in the early days.
Yeah.
You know, in the early days, it kind of fell to the real estate agent to deliver and do the pre-settlement inspections. Now we do all of that.
Yeah.
We want to know who's buying the houses, how we can help them, how they can enjoy the Rosefern journey.
Yeah.
And so that the next person that they tell to buy a house comes and knocks on our door. It's just invaluable.
Yeah.
So just learning those lessons, and you don't know what you don't know. So now I'd say we're a bit more bulletproof.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anyone who has been in the property market or had a business that's revolved around the property market that hasn't felt it a little bit over the last 24 months, right? Like it's even us doing the marketing and things like that for a lot of these companies. But one thing that really stood out to me is everyone that you just said then, I think everyone went in thinking it was quite easy. And I don't think it was the developer's fault necessarily, because for a period of time it actually was. Like if you just found a site, got some plans consented, gave them to an agent, gave them to us, gave us a few $1,000s, did whatever you wanted to do, the houses would actually just sell. So it wasn't even false. Like, sure, maybe the market was a little bit driven by demand more than it should have been, and interest was a little bit out of whack, and there was a few weird things that were there together. There was this COVID thing that was just smacked in the middle of it that all of a sudden helped, and it should never have. And there was all this odd. Who would have thought? Yeah, like that. I mean, I think back on that period of time and some of the developers we were working with, and it was like madness. Yeah. We had guys doing 130 sales in a month and things like that. It was like it was absurd. It was absurd. It was just a perfect storm. And with every high, there is a low that is the equal size, but it's a low. And then I think we all just kind of had to do that bit, you know? And because it's a perfect storm of everything being easy, how can you not feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof? How can you not hire the wrong subcontractor? How can you not be careless about this? It's impossible. You just.
And success isn't a great teacher. You know, if the whole hockey stick is going on, why do anything different if it's working? But then we realised that success was in the townhouse market was very much tied to interest rates. Yeah. You know, people were looking at the affordability rather than the value of the asset. Mm-hmm. So when the affordability started to come back, the value of the asset that they'd paid quite a lot for also dipped. Yeah. So there's a real focus on just, if you're buying a house, look at the house. Like, I think I talked about it on Rosefern's page not long ago, that interest rates, they change, they're like the weather. You know, you can't always control the weather. You can be as prepared as possible for it. Mm-hmm. But that's one thing you just can't predict and change. Yeah. Sometimes it's great outside, it's sunny and it's 2%. Yeah. That was great times. Yeah. But it can't be always. It's raining 7%. Yeah. You know, it's just, it is what it is. Yeah. But if you're looking for the house, make sure the developer is reputable, knows his stuff, and is producing really good quality homes. Yeah, sure. Did you, this is just completely out of curiosity, because you'll understand or have a deep knowledge of this market as well. Did you expect there to be more bloodshed than there was throughout that period of time? Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah, which is good to see that there's a bit of stability with the developers in and around Christchurch. Yeah. And we genuinely all know each other. You know, we all shake each other's hands, see each other at the gym and stuff. So it's nice to see a lot of the same faces still around. Yeah. No one wishes anyone to go down. No. I mean, as long as you've got a half a heart. You just don't want to see competition go down. Yeah. You want to see competition raise, because it raises the bar across everything. Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm pleased to see a lot of people are. Yeah, I think that it's, you know, like everyone talks about, or I think at least people expected a lot more of the, you know, the general market sentiment is, and I don't know if this is a New Zealand thing or it's attached to tall poppy or what it is, but like there's a bit of negativity attached around developers generally. And obviously I don't feel it because I love them, because I know so many of them, I know who they are, and, you know, but when you look at stuff and places like that, you know, they love seeing a builder or a property developer or someone go bust. And I think because of that, the overall market's kind of been waiting for the last 3 years for this absolute bloodbath that never fully happened. And I don't think
home sailing now, but I think things have stabilized a lot more and quicker than I probably thought it would too.
Yeah.
Seeing OCR come down, seeing things like that, knowing clients are selling stuff, it's all good. It's all good signs.
I remember the grant you could get after COVID.
Yeah.
I think it was a small business cash flow.
Yeah.
There were certain businesses that couldn't get it. So if you were a whale hunter, couldn't get it. Arms dealer, you couldn't get it. Property developer, you couldn't get it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
And with a good bunch of people.
Oh yeah. What do they think of us? We just want to build homes.
I don't. Yeah. I honestly, I don't. Yeah. I don't know where it's driven from. I think a lot of it is media-based stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like I said, I know a lot of and they're all really nice people, and they all, when things are good, they, sure, there's some really good times that come with that, but a lot of them had to work extremely hard to get to a point where they could ride that wave uphill.
Yeah.
And when things are bad, the buck stops with them. When that development has to be completed, so those homeowners can buy their houses, even though the developer will lose money on it. Developer can walk away, but these people aren't. And there's things like that going on where they ride the highs and the lows, but just no one talks about the other side of it. It's really interesting.
The buck really does stop with you. I mean,
Yeah.
and everything's so front loaded in development.
Mm-hmm.
You pay for the land, you pay for everything, and then you hope you've done a good enough job designing them and building them that there's a bit left at the end for you to get your margin back.
Yeah.
So it really is you just fronting up with all of the money and all of the confidence and experience to say, I can deliver this to you.
Yeah.
So you really are standing front line.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. And so what do you see as being next for Rosefern? Where are you guys going? What are the changes that you've made post some of those mistakes and that sort of thing?
Hiring some really good people.
Yeah, cool.
The guys in the office now are just great.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of our little team.
Yeah.
And I look up to them. I think, well, that's great for me as an owner of Rosefern, is if we've got people in there who have got more experience in development than I have.
Yeah.
Which just stands us in good stead because they drag us up.
Yeah.
It raises the bar.
Yeah.
So we'd like to hire a few more people.
Yeah.
And it actually isn't a bad environment to be hiring people in the construction industry because some of the big guys are shedding a bit of talent.
Yeah. All hiring right now is like, I haven't, the whole time I've been doing this, I haven't seen it this good. Yeah. I haven't seen, especially if you want experienced quality people, I think that there's still the more affordable end of the employment sort of spectrum is still a little bit weird. Like the people fresh out of university and things like that it's still a bit odd there. But there's a lot of people who are intelligent and experienced understand how challenging the job market is at the moment. Unemployment's out of control. They think it will peak in January and it will start to come down after there, which is really good. But unemployment's out of control. Redundancies are out of control. People that have a little bit of forward planning are looking at the companies that they're in and they're going, this is satisfactory currently, but is this job safe? Am I going to be happy here in this period? Like they're reconsidering stuff.
Yeah.
We've just hired, we have 3 new people starting in the beginning of next year, and 2 of them would have north of 10 years of experience, and we've never been able to hire those people before. Like the company hasn't been around that long, it's interesting, and they're affordable in comparison with where you typically see it, I think.
Which when you scale out and you look at your business over the next 5 to 10 years, those guys are going to add so much to your next journey. Yeah. Because they've already been there. They've been there for a decade and they bring all of that experience into your business. Yeah. How invaluable is that? Having someone who's had the battle scars of doing it with another company and can bring over the wins they've had and also the losses they've had, so don't do that. yeah,
which is probably the best bet. And I think the other thing as well is it strikes me as a lot of your stuff is similar to mine in terms of I've learned a lot of things on the fly, which means that I have some skills and some things that I'm really good at, but I have a lot of things that I'm not good at all, not even slightly. And so you can then start to pick people up that are actually, they really offset that. I've never had it. I mean, I've got 23 people at the start of next year, and it's like, I've never run a team that big. Prior to this, I'd never been a manager anywhere. I'd never done anything like that. And so bringing someone in who's been trained and learnt those skills and knows how, that's That's really interesting.
Yeah, and you can hire for your deficiencies.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always classed myself as a very hard worker. I
Yeah.
think coming from Newcastle,
Yeah.
it's a very blue collar town.
Yeah.
We are hard workers and proud of it.
Yeah.
That's always translated throughout my life. I got told as a kid, you work hard.
Yeah.
That's where reward comes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always translate into being a great manager.
Yeah.
So when we started hiring staff, I took myself on the Ice House Owners Managers course.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
It opened my eyes a lot to the skills needed, the skill set needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wouldn't say I'm a great manager. I haven't quite got there.
Yeah.
But I brought someone in who's actually better than me.
Yeah.
Great.
Which is
and
better.
I'm learning from him while
It's
he's
better.
in the job. It's great to learn from a course.
Yeah.
But this guy's come in and he's actually better than me. He's showing me how to do things. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I would argue, and I've been having this conversation a lot with my senior leadership team here recently, I would argue at times being a hard worker is actually not good if you're a manager.
Yeah.
Because you have and I don't know if you're the same as me, I'm making a lot of assumptions, but I fix shit because I'm like, I'll do it faster, more efficiently. Something goes wrong, I'm like, I got it. I do that. And what it does is it creates like a netting, kind of, if you will, around all of your people where they're not forced to do things at 100%, because if it's 90, someone will come in and make up the extra 10.
Yeah.
Whereas if innately you were, say, really lazy, when that person does something wrong, you'll turn around to them and go, do that again, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Instead, because you're a hard worker, it's 10 p.m. at night and you notice it and you go, I'll just start for 2 hours and I'll fix that right now, because that's not a problem for you.
Yeah.
And so you then wind up, and my whole senior leadership team, I don't know if they've learnt it from me or if it's how they are, but we call it get shit done. That's our, the get shit done mentality. And our current big conversation is the get shit done mentality the right mentality to have? Is that what we should do? Or should we be focusing on being enablers of the people that are in the team to be more get shit done?
Yeah.
And we're more mentoring, guiding, things like that?
Because get shit done's an input. You know, that you try and put more into it to get more out of it. But realistically, you should flip it and look at the output.
Yeah.
Go, well, how
100%.
can I achieve that by
Yeah.
not just going in hustle mentality or just working every hour?
Yeah.
Which is a big shift for me because I'm very similar to you. Like, I'll just hustle it. Don't worry, I'll get that.
Got it. No problems.
Yeah.
All over it.
Yeah.
The way that I describe it to them is I say, getting shit done feels really good right now. Teaching someone else how to do it feels really good later. Because you don't get that. You teach them how to do it properly and you never have to do it.
Yeah.
That's it. Whereas you get it done, feels good now because it's done, then you have to do it again, then you have to do it again, then you have to do it again, and it doesn't feel very good
You
later.
want to go fast, you do it yourself.
Yeah.
You want to go far, you do it together.
Yeah,
you teach it.
yeah, there we go. That's a good one.
Big fan of Alex Hormozy, so I'm just like rehashing
His stuff
some
is
of his
so
stuff.
good, eh?
Oh yeah, my partner says is my man crush.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's not, and like, hey, it's not our fault. He's also jacked and rich, and and such an exceptional communicator. There's worse man crushes to have.
Exactly.
There's worse.
Yeah.
Have you read all his books?
$100 million leads, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Have you done the
offers,
sales?
Yeah. No.
Oh no, sales is the one that's coming. Sorry, offers is the blue one.
Offers
Eh?
and leads.
Oh,
Yeah.
Offers is I bought when it first released, and I had to get them shipped to a freight forwarding company. It was like $1,000 for 10 of these books, and I was like, I'm getting 10 of them, and I gave them to a whole bunch of the stuff. I actually don't know what wound up happening to them. I've got one copy at home left. That's it. They've all vanished off into the abyss. But if you're starting out, those two books are the best books you could possibly. Yeah. And then his sales book, I feel like, would be incredible too. There's no one who I've ever experienced who says things that match the way that my brain thinks so well. Like the way that he can articulate
relatable.
stuff. Yeah.
So relatable. Yeah.
Incredible, eh? Incredible. Yeah.
I just deep dive into his stuff. Like if I ever need just a burst of inspiration, I know I can go to the library and just find something that shouts out to me.
Yeah.
But this is why a podcast like this is great. As someone else down the track, 5 years time, they'd be going, "Oh, listen to James Wallace's stuff." That education through experience.
Yeah.
And putting it out there.
Yeah.
That's how the world's taken now.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Honestly, I wanted to do the podcast for a long time, and the only reason I actually started it is because we have this like goals group. David Mel's actually a part of it, and we set these little things we need to achieve, and then when we achieve them, we shout the other members dinner at Bessie, and we actually just all like going to dinner at Bessie and eating steak and talking shit, and so we all then really push towards our goals. And so I decided that mine was going to be launching the podcast because I've been meaning to it for years. I've been talking about it, and then everyone else went and achieved their goals and got to do the dinner thing, and I was getting a little bit, so I only started it for that. It's been mental to see what, like, I didn't expect this, because my attitude to stuff is always invest in it ruthlessly for a year and expect nothing to come out of it, and then just see what happens. And this will be episode under 30, maybe high 20s that this one will be. And we've signed 2 clients off it. We signed another one today. Both of them, funnily enough, have signed their proposals the same day they've come into the office. So they've come in, met with us, we've sent the proposal, they've signed same day. The brand lift and things like that we're getting from it is absurd. We're getting, give or take, 100 listeners, maybe a little bit more a day. And you go, like, that's actually a lot of touch points with people. It's in a different format to say than watching a reel of yours on social media. So, it's quite intimate, and they get to experience a lot, and it's really interesting.
Can't just flick past you. They're really immersed in it. And if you put 100 people in a room and talk to them, you'd be happy with that.
Every day?
That's great.
Yeah, every day. You think about it, you're like, wow. And that's just Spotify. That's not including like YouTube and Apple Podcasts and all that. So it's been really interesting. And
it'll compound and grow, and I'll keep listening.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And so you're few more hires to come up. What are you? Where are you guys at in terms of your business cycle? Are you buying sites at the moment? Are you still? How's all that going?
Yeah, so we're actively looking for sites.
Yeah,
that's predominantly my role now.
Yeah.
Over the years of so many private sales and negotiations with people, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm not a hard-nosed negotiator. I know if I can make it work for me and the person next to me.
Yeah.
And that might come down to you can either get your price or your terms, ideally both. But if you can make it work to the person sat opposite you and it works for your business, why not just do a deal?
Yeah.
So that's my favourite way of approaching it.
Yeah.
So that's my main focus at the minute. Because if you think of Rosefern as a machine, you've got to make sure the raw material at the front that goes in, that you build the houses on, so the land that you build the houses on, it makes everything in the middle easier if you find the right sites, the right locations. And now that the cost to build the homes, we've actually brought that down. But we've actually up-spec'd the homes, which is great because we're putting out a better product for cheaper than we used to. Yeah. Which is fantastic. We're passing on the savings to the customers. Yeah. And then that makes the whole flow through from the land through to the houses. The sales in the middle are a lot easier. And if we ever finish and we've got finished stock to put on the market, they'll impress.
Yeah, nice.
So that's my main focus at the minute, is making the raw material going in at the front. Yeah. Journey seamless for everyone else.
Yeah, sure. Nice. And do you think you'll ever be involved in anything outside of property now? Is it pretty much got you? Maybe.
Yeah. So sure. I think myself and Paul have got an interest in, don't laugh, a shampoo company.
Interesting.
It's actually a keratin company.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So Paul's partner, Natalie, she runs Keratin. Yeah. Can you not tell what I'm any longer?
You must be doing something.
But it's this fantastic product, which is actually taken from sheep's wool.
Yeah.
And they managed to pull the keratin out of it. So it's a byproduct of the sheep's wool, which gets shorn anyway. And then it's made at Lincoln University, and they've distilled it down to these keratin supplement pills. Yeah. And it helps with your hair regrowth, your skin, your nails. Yeah. And it's an e-commerce product, and it just cranks. Yeah, it's amazing. Like and the stories of people's success from using it. Like a lot of women with postpartum hair loss. Yeah. They've managed to really increase the hair growth. Yeah, wow. You can tell I'm not the salesperson for the company.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good pitch. I was just thinking, like, obviously, Jen's 5 months postpartum. I'll get her some, because like their nails get real brittle and stuff like it's amazing what their bodies go through. It's mental.
Yeah, we can't comprehend it.
No, they're so much better than us at this shit. I was thinking about this last night. I was like, she hasn't really slept for like a week, and I was like, Jesus, you're carrying a lot of the load at the moment. Like you're, And
you
then,
can't say you're tired for another 5 years at least.
No mention. I'll order some. That's a great idea. That's awesome. That'd be great.
That business really interests me as well. Yeah. I mean, 98% of my focus is always Rosefern.
Of course.
But that's such a cool little company, and the ingredients are literally found on our doorstep. The sheep that are wandering around in the South Islands. Yeah. But there's international appeal for it.
Yeah, right.
There's companies over in the US that Beyonce's got a keratin shampoo company using a similar shampoo, using the similar product. Yeah. The scale for that thing to grow isn't like Rosefern. Yeah. If we want to grow to do 300 houses, we have to get more staff, more money, more everything. Yeah. With this product, it can grow quite vertically. You can really just find new audiences to show them your product, and it can just go. And the company itself is 10x this year.
Yeah, wow.
So that
10's a lot.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy. Yeah. And it still ran on a pretty much a shoestring.
Yeah,
and these e-commerce companies who don't need a huge amount of capital behind you. You just got to make sure you get all your reordering right so you don't run out of stock. And
especially if you're pretty savvy.
yeah,
You know, there's, like you said, there's the reordering, there's the funnels that drive the people through, and as long as you get those two things dialed, it's, you know, you need a few people to put some pills in some bottles, but outside that, it's pretty all good.
So it's got the pills and the bottles, it's got the shampoo, the conditioner,
Yeah.
and then a serum as well.
Yeah, wow.
And there's plans for a few more products in the range.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how that company, of course, it's a keratin company, but it's also a brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's who's using the brand, and that influencer industry has always intrigued me. Who's holding the bottle? Is it this famous?
Do you do much with it on TikTok?
We've just got on TikTok.
Yeah, right.
Just got on TikTok.
I've got an interesting, and this will be documented. It's currently the 5th of December. I've got an interesting call for TikTok next year from like someone who's in the market. I think it's a really high risk platform at the moment. I think that basically where this has come from is I was asked to do this predictions dinner last night, and so what I had to predict was social media usage per platform end of next year. Yeah. So the platforms were Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and maybe it was Snapchat. There was one other, LinkedIn. Sorry, LinkedIn. So I had to go through, look at how many users were there monthly. And I think that TikTok, for e-commerce right now, organically is it. Just for example, like no questions asked, it is the platform for you to be on. If you guys can start producing short form video content there in high volume, you could go nuts for free. And that hasn't existed for a long time. It has been around for the last couple of years, but prior to that, there was a big gap between the Facebook days where you could just blow things up with giveaways and all that sort of stuff, right? I think that there's a real risk with a changing dynamic in America, TikTok being owned by the Chinese government, some of the privacy stuff that they've got. Like, I think it could be a platform that isn't here at the end of next year.
That's interesting.
Completely. Yeah. And so I go back to the reference point I use, and for reference, it's outside of the fact that it appeals to people under 18, which I have questionable views on for social media, knowing how like the consumption of it works and how it affects your dopamine and things like that. I don't actually really have a problem with TikTok. I actually think it's quite cool that there's a platform that gives users that ability to go viral, and I support that in the platform. The privacy thing, I mean, there's all questionable privacy stuff there, but I look at a platform like Vine, for example. I don't know if you remember Vine, but short form video content. It was creator driven. They were the ones making the money. Went big and then vanished. And I think that if there's some sort of something in America that prevents creators from making money on it, or if it gets really dramatically made illegal or banned in the country or something like that, I think that causes huge withdrawal from the platform, and it probably drives a lot of traffic towards Instagram for Instagram Reels. And being realistic, if you want a platform to last, probably the best way to do that is just to be bought by Meta, because everything they do seems to turn to gold. It's interesting.
But you look at Australia now, and they've just banned social media for
under 16s. It's illegal.
Wow.
Which I agree with in terms of the principle of it. I don't think the government should be involved, because it becomes like it's illegal.
Or a parental issue.
It's a parental issue. I think that if we're being conscious of what is affecting young people on the internet, I'd say social media is probably 2 or 3 on the list, and there's bigger things that we should be talking about that actually should be probably illegal and managed a little bit better that aren't. So it's I think once again, this came up at this dinner last night, and I described that move as being quite woke, was the word that I used, which someone else had used prior for Blue Sky, which is the new founder of Twitter. He's restarted, and I said it's pretty woke. And they're like, it's not. I was like, well, I don't know if that's the place. But then you wind up going on this big political thing, which is a little bit hard enough. It's for the podcast. But I think I do support control from parents around usage of these platforms. I think that especially something like TikTok, where it's actually quite, it's quite dark at points, and there's a lot of stuff on there you probably don't want why can't everyone just play PS2s and shit like we used to? And there's no internet access, and we just tried to pass levels.
I've played actual football. I remember.
I went outside.
I used to play out till crazy times of night, and my mother would wonder where I was.
I used to make little toy guns out of sticks and run around pretending to shoot my brother on the driveway, and flick hockey balls around and do stuff like that. I don't know where that's all gone.
Exactly. I remember my mother. She won a PlayStation at work.
Yeah.
And she got me two games, Grand Theft Auto and FIFA 98.
Yeah.
I was like, cool, football game. I played it once. I was like, why am I playing football inside?
Yeah.
So straight outside.
Yeah,
I put my cups of tea on it as a kid. You're so British.
Yeah. So were you handy at football? I haven't actually heard this. Were you quite good?
Yeah, I was semi-professional when I was 15.
Right. Yeah.
So I was pretty handy, and then I went to university and played decent level at university, national, and so I used to be able to kick a ball. Yeah, nice. But from Newcastle, that's what everyone does. It just runs so deep. Yeah. It's a religion. It's a one club town. A lot of other cities like Liverpool have Liverpool and Everton, so there's a bit of a split in the city. Yeah. In Newcastle, it's called the Cathedral on the Hill. Everyone goes, and it goes back to the coal mining days. Yeah. Where everyone worked till 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and then they would just pile to the match. Yeah. And you had Jackie Milburn, who used to work in the coal mines, and he used to go from working to playing, and he would just be adored because he was the goal-scoring hero. Yeah. So it's just a different time. Yeah. That vein of passion's just continued through. Yeah, and right. I still get up at crazy times to watch the games, and still ring my granddad. First thing he says, we played well, didn't we? Yeah. So it's something you just can't shake off. You're born with your colours in Newcastle. Yeah, and hey, it paid off. Yeah, exactly. Paid off. Yeah. Who would have thought? Never played football. Where would you be? Who would have thought? Well, I actually think that. I think, I didn't get a professional career out of it, but I think I got a different career. Yeah. I've had a couple of injuries, so I haven't played recently. Yeah. But it's been great to me. New Zealand's been great to me. The people in New Zealand have been great to me, but football's been great to me throughout my life. Yeah. And socially, it's been one of the best things I've ever done. Yeah, wow. Because immediately you can go to a new place, join a team, 16 mates like that. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a bond that's formed over sport or things like that. I think about the Muay Thai gym that I train at, and how it's different. It's different when you especially if we're all training together and one of the guys is in a fight camp or something like that, and then you get to see them go and fight like that. It's just cool. Proper. It's proper. Yeah. It's not and maybe you have a couple of beers every now and again after a training, or you do something like that. But it's just it's just different. It's just different, that sort of thing. Because I feel like I'm a bit like yourself. I listened to the Rico podcast, and they were talking about the harder you train, sometimes the more mentally clear you feel. Yeah. But you can't push yourself too far. Yeah. I had that over the years. Yeah. I got to the point where I wanted to run an ultra marathon. Mm-hmm. I'd never ran a marathon, and to this date, I'd never actually ran the distance of a marathon. 42 clicks, I've only ran 50. Yeah. On a trail, right. Yeah. So, well, that counts. Yeah. I should have just stopped and got the 42. Yeah. But no, I always used it to clear my mind. Yeah. Which also became a bit of a crutch. Yeah. Because I had a really bad back injury 2 years ago, blew 2 discs. Yeah. Playing football. But then I struggled to clear my mind because that crutch that I had of going to the gym was completely gone. Yeah. And it was also at the same tough time work-wise, where the contractors realised that weren't quite going well. So I had a double down. Yeah. At the same time as the market softened. Yeah. So then I realised there was a massive reliance on just using the gym or getting those pheromones by working out super hard. Yeah. So that was a big shift. That was a really big shift. The concept of healthy, unhealthy vices is so weird. It's so weird. But I've gone through, and I mean, I don't know if I've spoke to you about the marathon, but I ran one, and everyone views running a marathon I'd like to complete this thing and blah blah blah, and I actually support that, just for reference. I think that's better than what I did. Yeah. I was I have to run under 3 hours 30 for my first marathon. That was my thing, and I couldn't run 5 kilometers when I started training. My current ability versus my expectations on myself were absurd, and then I just went and actively made it all infinitely harder on myself, and I used to never run with headphones in and stuff like that. I was I need to embrace the pain, and I'd and I'd run on hills and shit. I was doing all sorts of stuff. It was just awful. The whole thing was awful, and I wound up running a 3 hours 36 marathon, and I remember being really disappointed about it. And I thought about that a little bit afterwards, and I was that is an absurd
concept. Like I was getting needles stuck in my quad 5 days out because I could barely walk because of a knee injury, and like I shouldn't have. And like 3:36 is such a good. It was 5 minutes, 6 Ks or something for 42 Ks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what kind of pressure am I putting on myself where that's inadequate?
Yeah.
Like that's a poor showing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that podcast with Rico was awesome. I'm going to do his thing. You mentioned that you've done it a few times.
I've done it all the way through once,
Yeah.
and then just recently I'm going through again.
Yeah.
Something I don't think a lot of business owners address is we take on a lot of stress.
Yeah.
You know, like you said earlier, the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
And being a fixer, again, like we discussed, you take on so much pressure.
Yeah.
And without the coping mechanisms, that pressure just builds and builds and builds, and eventually something cracks, and you don't want it to be you in a bad way.
Yeah.
So it's confronting doing the stuff with Rico, but it's amazing afterwards how much better you feel. Like, you realise you're not just adjusting, like you're really taking down on the actual cause of why you behave in a certain way or why you use certain coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd put it out there and say, if you're feeling it, go and see Rico. He fixes you.
I told him I'd do it on the podcast. I need to fill out his form. He sent it through to me. And so I suppose probably I'm kind of heading towards kind of the end of the episode here, but how do you find that, or what is it that, and this is a question I've asked everyone, but it just sort of feels appropriate. What is it that sort of drives you to do this stuff? What is it that, you know, like, is it the property? Is it you and just wanting to be better? Something's got to be pushing you to want more if you've done enough, you know, at this point. What is it?
It's because I see a need for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have just got into property to try and make money.
Yeah.
It's not what you do. Like, but we do have a housing shortage. We do have a housing crisis, and the cost and affordability is something that it's hard to actually deliver in an environment where land costs a lot and construction costs a lot.
Yeah.
So actually helping some of these like younger Kiwis get into their first home, that's fantastic for me. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, cool.
Because every now and then we'll get someone on Facebook say, you're cramming these houses in. They're generally in the late 50s, 60s, 70s. Never really in the 20s.
Yeah.
Because at that end of the spectrum, they're just happy to be able to get on the housing ladder at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can do that and deliver affordability and quality, that's my mission, like to be able to enable that.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I've got one final question for you. I ask every guest this as the closing, right? And I deliberately haven't given you any insight into what it is. If you could go back to, say, all the way back to prawn fishing, and you could do one thing different along your journey, what would that one thing be?
Well, that's a really good question. That's a really good question.
It catches a few people, to be honest.
Yeah, I would probably go back to the point when myself and Paul ended up on the front cover of Property Investor magazine and said to yourself, actually take hold of this social media thing.
Yeah.
Actually, like, embrace it instead of popping one picture on your Facebook and saying, hey guys, check this out. This is cool.
Yeah.
Like, because people actually were really interested in the journey.
Yeah.
But instead of actually telling them the story and then keeping them updated, I've always shied away a little bit from social media and doing this kind of stuff. But I've realised how an audience is so vital. It's so vital. It's the new currency. Attention. It's if I'd known back then about the power of these platforms and how far it could take you, I would have delved. Why wasn't Alex Hormozy around back then? He could have taught us so much stuff.
Mate, we the amount of personal branding business we do now is absurd. We're talking, you know, like we're signing personal branding clients at the same rate as businesses at the moment, because people are realizing that it's also not your company's brand that matters. It's you. People buy off you. I was talking obviously about the sales we've made off this podcast, and I have a collection of other sales that have come through, like my personal Instagram where I post stuff about marketing and things like that. They buy you first. Then if your company's adequate, that gets that's the final check off. But they buy you first. They buy you first, and that's a really good one. Yeah.
Always look back and think if we'd embraced that, because people enjoy seeing the insights, and I mean the journey is something that I'm quite proud of. Yeah. You know, I never expected to be running a development company when I turned up to New Zealand 11 years ago with a little bag. Yeah. So really embracing that would have been something I'd love to have done.
Yeah, cool. I suppose the best day to start is now.
I know.
Lean
David
into
Mells
a little
keeps
bit more.
telling me to do a podcast. I'm like, oh, well, look, it's not as bad as I expected.
Oh yeah, we'll pull some clips out of this. Maybe it can be the foundation for you to build off. That'd be that's really cool. If someone's heard what you've been talking about today, they like it, they want to talk a little bit more, get to know you a little bit more, where's the best way to find you?
Rosefern Homes.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram, Facebook, the usual.
Yeah, cool.
Just hit us up, follow the journey. We're posting stuff about the developments and what stage they're at, and come say hi.
Cool, great. Hey, thank you so much.
Cheers, James.
Not so bad, eh?
Oh no.
It's good fun. I told you. Yeah. They go really quickly. Yeah. I'm really enjoying doing them. Thank you so much. That was a heap of fun. I really appreciate the time you took to come in and sit down.
Thanks very much, James.
Cool. If you've listened this far, obviously I really appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, check us out across YouTube, our socials, all that sort of thing, and go have a look at Rosefern Homes. Thanks again. I'll see you on the next one.